The NFL playoff picture is locked in, and my go-to place for wild card round action is DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off the road to Super Bowl 57, new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat bet each day of the wild card round this weekend. Just place any NFL bet of your choice, and if it loses, you'll get a free bet backup up to $10. Action so good, why bet NFL playoffs anywhere else? I really enjoy using the DraftKings Sportsbook app. It's easy and everything is at your fingertips. And all you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code SOTS. New customers can bet $5 on the NFL and get $200 in free bets instantly only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Once again, use the promo code SOTS. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. And if you or someone you know that is dealing with a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be assessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. You have to be 21 plus, physically present in Louisiana. Eligibility restrictions apply. Free bets valid, one per new customer. Minimum $5 deposit. Minimum $5 bet. $200 issued as free bets that expire 7 days, 168 hours after being awarded. Sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. Valid one offer per customer per day of the NFL 2023 wildcard round. Opt-in requests each day. First bet must lose after opting in. NFL bet only. Paid as one free bet based on amount of initial losing bet. Max $10 free bet awarded. Free bets expire 7 days after being awarded. See terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. Hey, what's going on, sports fans? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, and I am the host of the Gumbo Pie Sports Podcast. This is episode number 1. Hope everybody is having a good day so far. Hope everybody is excited because it is Wild Card Weekend and it is Wild Card Saturday. So we're going to be breaking down the 2 games that are going to take place on today, and we're also going to be talking about some more news that has been making their rounds around the NFL. Including head coach Sean McVay coming back to the Rams. But shouts out to everybody that's listening in the chat. If you're new here, if you found yourself intrigued just by the name of the show, thank you so much. We are a very interactive podcast here. So if you have any questions in regards to your favorite team or a story that's going on, just go ahead and put it down in the comments. And if you're watching right now, hopefully this won't be your last time. Subscribe to the channel. This is the State of the Saints Podcast Network, where you get several podcasts to choose from. The State of the Saints Podcast, Therapy Couch Podcast, and now the Gumbo Pie Sports Podcast. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right. Wild Card Weekend is upon us. Everybody is excited, especially for those fans of teams that are actually fighting right now, still have opportunity for a championship, and that's extremely important. if you're going to make it to the Super Bowl. And there are some teams that are playing on today that may find themselves being in that big game based on the way that they've been playing all season long. The two games that are taking place on today on Wildcard Saturday, first game is the Seahawks. They will be traveling to Levi Stadium to take on the San Francisco 49ers, one of the most red-hot teams in the National Football League. And, of course, you have the battle of the young guns, Justin Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence, the Chargers versus the Jaguars. The Chargers will head halfway across the country to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. Jacksonville are the AFC South champions. The San Francisco 49ers are the NFC West champions. So they get their home game and they get opportunity to be able to go to the divisional round. But let's go ahead and start with this game, the Seattle Seahawks versus San Francisco 49ers. These two teams are very familiar with each other. They get an opportunity to play each other twice a year because they're in the same division. You have Geno Smith, who has been a bright surprise to a lot of members of the Seattle Seahawks fan base. A lot of people probably thought, I'm talking maybe outside of the Seattle Seahawks organization, probably thought that these guys would be picking in the top 5 due to the fact that they have been struggling. I mean, everybody kind of thought that the Seahawks were going to be one of the worst teams in all of football when it first started. Nobody picked these guys to win anything, but they found themselves in the playoffs. A couple things happened that went their way. The Green Bay Packers didn't get it done versus the Detroit Lions, and this gave them opportunity to make the postseason. So Geno Smith, in my opinion, who is going to end up being the comeback player of the year, he has been playing really well this season. Looking at his stats, I mean, you have to be impressed. Like, nobody expected Geno Smith to be at 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, and only 11 interceptions. Geno Smith has had some stops along the way. Of course, we know that he was drafted by the Jets. It just didn't pan out. He ended up having a couple years with the Chargers, then finally with the Seattle Seahawks. So Geno Smith is a guy who a lot of people probably wrote off. He's in his early 30s, but he's getting an opportunity to play in a playoff game and to lead the Seattle Seahawks. But the Seattle Seahawks, as red hot as they started the season, and they've been sputtering down the stretch. They've been scoring less than 20 points per game over the last few games, and that is not a recipe for success when you're going up against a red-hot San Francisco 49ers team who has won 10 games in a row. Look, the 49ers, no matter who they seem to put at quarterback, it always seems to work. You put Jimmy G back there, they winning games. You put anybody back there at the quarterback position, it seemed like to me like they're going to find some levels of success. And Brock Purdy, the guy who was picked last in this past draft, is out there wheeling and dealing. He has 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, over 1,300 yards passing. And you can tell that this 49er team really believes in this guy. And why wouldn't you believe in him? When you have a potent running game, you got a really stout defense that don't give up much. You got Nick Bosa, who has been absolutely incredible this season, 18 and a half sacks, leading the entire NFL. You got Greenlaw, you got Warner as your linebackers, and then you got Ward. I mean, you got so many guys like on this team defensively as well as offensively that can get the job done. I mean, Deebo Samuels was dealing with an injury. He's coming back. Brandon Ayuk seems to be living up to potential. And what more can you say about George Kittle? I mean, besides him and Travis Kelce, what's the conversation about the best tight end in all of football? But the Seattle Seahawks, their keys to victory, I mean, it has to be them being able to get on the same page. I'm talking DK Metcalf and Geno Smith. I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, DK Metcalf has like 13 targets over the last couple of games. He hasn't scored a touchdown in 4 games, and he's only had completed 4 out of those 13 targets that he has. So for some apparent reason, DK and Geno have not been on the same page, but they have to find a way to get there if they're going to be successful. Tyler Lockett, to me, is one of the most underrated wide receivers in all of football. All this guy does is clutch catches, and it's good to have him back. He's been dealing with injuries. You got Noah Fant, who I feel like can be a key cog into this offensive wheel today versus the 49ers, because the 49ers have shown that they can be a little bit susceptible when it comes against the tight ends, even though their linebacker group is pretty good. As far as the running backs, Kenneth Walker started off a little slow, when the season first started. Then when Rashad Penny goes down, he's getting a majority of the snaps, and he never looked back. I mean, he has went over 100 yards over the last few games, and it seems like to me like he's really starting to find his stride. The problem is he's going up against one of the most stout fronts in all of football with the San Francisco 49ers. They do not give up much. Okay, so every yard that Kenneth Walker is going to get today, he is going to fight tooth and nail in order for him to get it. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers have a way of getting pressure, and they don't have to find ways to get exotic with it. These guys can get home with 4. I mean, they can send blitzes if they want to, but why would you when you have Nick Bosa and those guys up front that can hunt all day long? So Geno Smith is going to have to figure this thing out, okay? He started off red hot at the beginning of the season, got a little bit cold down the stretch, has been throwing some interceptions. He threw 2 last week versus the Rams. You do not want to do that. So Geno Smith, I'm pretty sure he's going to be wild up, excited about getting an opportunity to start in the playoff game, but he has to stay true to himself. The San Francisco 49ers in the 2 meetings against the Seattle Seahawks, they have won both of those games. Now, we heard the old saying, it is hard to beat a team 3 times. Now, I'm not buying that. I'm not. I'm not buying that whole thing about, you can't beat a team 3 times. Yes, you can. All right. I've seen teams beat another team 3 times, the team that was in their division. So San Francisco 49ers, the way that they have been playing, I think they have what it takes in order for them to win this game. I mean, there's very little weaknesses that I see on the San Francisco 49ers team. And even with those injuries that happened in the middle of the season, guys are slowly starting to come back. So I just think, and I look at this matchup, I mean, the San Francisco 49ers are the team that I feel like every fan want their team to mimic. They play really good defense. They're not afraid to punch you in the mouth. They will impose their will by any means necessary, and they're a very, 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 very tough team to beat. And then you also add Christian McCaffrey, who came in via trade earlier in the season. He seems to really be coming on. Him and Kyle Shanahan, they got that offensive package together to make him even more effective. And we know Christian McCaffrey, the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, the ability to run in between the tackles. And I'm looking at the linebacking core of the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, I'm not seeing, guys that have been legendary linebackers, that has been back there, that has been playing at a high level. Those guys are gone, right? Those guys are gone. Bobby Wagner is no longer there. I mean, you got Bruce Irvin, who's up there in age, but he's not the Bruce Irvin that we are used to seeing. I mean, you have guys that are on this team. You got young guys, but they are inexperienced. So I just think that if you use Christian McCaffrey in the right way, it's going to be a tough outing. I mean, talking about a tough outing for the Seattle Seahawks. I expect for the 49ers to jump on these guys really quick. I see that they're a 9.5-point favorite, the 49ers. I believe that. I got the 49ers winning this football game. I think it's going to be a big game for the 49ers. I think Brock Purdy, he might, kind of do some things early in the game. I mean, the fact that you're a rookie and you're starting a playoff game, I'm not expecting for him to just come out and light the world on fire, but I do expect for him to play well enough for the 49ers offense to really impose their will. So I got the 49ers winning this football game, and I think that it's going to be in incredible fashion. Let me go ahead and read some of your comments here. It says, kind of strange watching football and not stressing out. Well, well, when your team is not in the postseason, I mean, there's nothing really to stress out for. I mean, the only thing that you have is envy, right? Because your team didn't get opportunity to make the postseason, and these teams have. So there is a level of envy that plays a role in this. But, I'm just excited to actually watch football and actually be a fan. For those that don't know, I'm a Saints fan. Been, born and raised in New Orleans. The Saints aren't in the playoffs, but I'm a big-time sports fan, and I love watching the NFL, and I love the postseason because there is no tomorrow, and you get people's best performances. You get gutsy performances every now and then. You'll see a team that just seems like they have no business in the fight, but these teams are so neck and neck. And if the playoffs is anything like it was last year, then we're in for a treat. I know it's a tough beating division opponent 3 times, but I don't see the Seahawks beating the 49ers. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, you look at the 49ers, it just seems like they're clicking on all cylinders. Everything seems to be going right with the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, you got to give Kyle Shanahan a lot of credit. The guy is an incredible coach, and he can find a way to win football games. And there's very few guys that can do what Kyle Shanahan is doing as a coach. Most of the time, if you lose your starting quarterback or you lose your starting running back or you lose your star receiver, you see a little bit of a team being taken back. But it seemed like they rise to the occasion and guys really step up, and he instills that level of confidence inside of them, and they play as if they've been a starter the entire season. I mean, look at the 49ers. The 49ers started the season with Trey Lance as their starting quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup. Trey Lance goes out. He's out for the season. In comes Jimmy Garoppolo. He plays extremely well. And then all of a sudden, Jimmy G goes down and Brock Purdy comes in. And I'm pretty sure a lot of NFL fans were probably thinking, well, that's it for the San Francisco 49ers. Well, in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast. I mean, it just seems like no matter who's back there as a signal caller, they're able to get the job done. And you got to give credit to Kyle Shanahan because he finds ways. He continues to find ways to put this team in a position to succeed. That is the recipe for success, and that is a testament to how great of a coach he really is. Think 49ers will win, but I've been wrong more than right this season. Well, I don't think picking the 49ers is a bad thing, and I don't feel like some teams they come in with a bunch of momentum. They come in with a bunch of excitement and they can't live up to the hype. I don't see this when it comes to the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan constantly has this team prepared to win. He has these guys prepared to, put their best foot forward. I really don't see the 49ers really just wetting the bed in the postseason. They make it to the Super Bowl more times than not. They went to the NFC Championship game last year, and a lot of people would probably admit they had no business even being in that game. Because if you remember, they were in a win-in situation with the Rams last season. So the 49ers were able to win that game, and that's how they got into the playoffs. So everything else, they kind of overachieved in the postseason. So I have a lot of respect for Kyle Shanahan as a coach. The guy knows what he's doing. I can tell you that right now. Let me scroll down a little bit. He says, I told y'all when my team not in it, it's 49ers time. It says, I'm picking the 49ers on winning the game, tough division. Yeah, I think that the 49ers are going to win this football game. But let's go ahead and read some of the key players on each team. Like I said, Geno Smith, he has 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Kenneth Walker went over 1,000 yards, had 9 touchdowns. And DK Metcalf with 90 catches for 1,048 yards and 6 touchdowns. Meanwhile, I mentioned Brock Purdy, 1,300 yards passing with 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Christian McCaffrey with 159 carries for 746 yards. And Brandon Ayuk, 78 carries for 1,015 yards and 8 touchdowns. So that is the tail of the tape. There's some of your offensive players. I mentioned Nick Bosa having 18 and a half sacks. I mean, this team is incredible. And the 49ers are one of the best defenses in all of football. So I got to give some acknowledgement to DeMeco Ryans, who I feel like is probably going to be getting some interviews really, really soon. He has done a really good job as the defensive coordinator of the 49ers, and they have really been stepping up their game. So I expect for a guy like DeMeco Ryans to probably get some interviews around this coaching cycle once the 49ers, finish up in the postseason, rather it's in the, getting eliminated or them making it all the way to the Super Bowl. But I expect for DeMeco Ryans to get an opportunity to be a head coach one day. But I definitely expect for him to get some interviews coming up really, really soon. The next game is the Chargers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Los Angeles Chargers started off a little bit rough. Brandon Staley, the head coach of the Chargers, a lot of people thought that he wouldn't weather the regular season storm, so to speak. A lot of people thought that Black Monday had his name written all over it. They had a lot of insiders talking about Sean Payton was interested in the job, former New Orleans Saints coach. Brandon Staley, you got to give him a lot of credit to be able to drown out all of that noise and get his team prepared to play in the postseason, because it was tough, man. They were losing games, and a lot of people thought that they weren't going to make the playoffs, but here they are. And you have a guy in Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert to me is a really good quarterback. I just think that the biggest issue is, in today's NFL, we want the guy that's the prima donna. We want the guy that's always talking. We want the guy to be the focal point. If you follow Justin Herbert, that's not his style. That's just not who he is. You don't check him out on social media. You don't know what he's doing every second, every minute of the day. He's a guy I like to call a unique enigma. He's a guy that kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. I think that he's a competitor, but I just think that, he can do it all the pomp and circumstance. So I just think that sometimes people just tend to forget how good this dude actually is. I mean, he has 25 touchdown passes, and I just think that he has really just been stepping it up and doing some really good things with this team. And I think that the sky is the limit for Justin Herbert. I mean, you got 4,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I mean, he can do it all. He has great arm talent, and he has great instincts to play the quarterback position. But he also has a supporting cast, man. I'm looking at Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, 204 carries, 915 yards, and 13 touchdowns. But Austin Eckler also went over 100 catches. Man, this guy, to me, very, very underrated. Another guy who is extremely underrated. I think guys like McCaffrey, I think guys like Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, these guys get all the attention for their ability to run in between the tackles and catch the ball out of backfield. But Austin Eckler is one of those guys that kind of flies under the radar, but he is a guy that is very, very useful. And Justin Herbert really utilizes Austin Eckler in certain situations because he knows that he can deliver. Now, there's a little bit of bad news if you're a Chargers fan. Wide receiver Mike Williams will not play in this game. Found out he had a fracture in his back, so he won't be playing. He was your leading receiver with 63 receptions, 895 yards, and 4 touchdowns. We know that Mike Williams can make some catches, man. He's a guy that can win those 50-50 balls for you. And throughout the years, he has had issues when it comes to injuries. It was good to see him actually be able to put together a formidable season. And you also have veteran Keenan Allen, who is the most, and I cannot stress this enough, the most underrated wide receiver probably in the last decade and a half. You know what I'm saying? Like this decade, a decade and a half. Like this guy, all he does is just make plays. And it just seems like to me, like he just doesn't get the attention that I feel like he deserves. But him coming back from injuries, I just think that it gives Justin Herbert a guy that he know that he can count on. And now Keenan Allen is going to really have to step up in the absence of Mike Williams. But we have seen throughout Keenan Allen's career that he has that ability to step up. Nick Bosa, the brother of Joey Bosa, the brother of Nick Bosa, of course, was dealing with some injuries. And a lot of people thought that maybe he wouldn't be playing in this game, but he is going to give it a go. Brandon Staley already confirmed that. A lot of people thought that he wasn't going to practice, but he came. Not only did he come back to practice, he's going to be playing in this game. And if you put him alongside Khalil Mack, man, you got some problems if you're Trevor Lawrence. You got some problems if you are Trevor Lawrence, all right? And you are with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the crazy thing about both of these quarterbacks, they had for the most part, the same identical touchdown to interception ratio almost. I mean, for the exception of Trevor Lawrence, he had 8 interceptions. Justin Herbert had 10, but both of these guys had 25 touchdowns, and both of them had 4,000 yards passing. So if you look at these two guys, it seems like they're both on the uptick. And this is really good news if you're a Jaguars fan, because it started off a little bit rough when it came to Trevor Lawrence, him being drafted first pick overall a couple of years ago. A lot of people thought that, he was just going to hit the ground running. He was supposed to be that generational talent like Peyton Manning, like Andrew Luck. He was supposed to be in that type of category, and he is living up to the hype. And you have to give credit to Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson, who got the job as the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everybody knows Doug Peterson's resume, won a lot of games in Philadelphia, brought them a Super Bowl championship. It ended kind of on a funny style on a Sunday night, him benching Jalen Hurts for another quarterback, and Nick Sedfield, or whatever his name is. I'm sorry, but Sedfield, And a lot of people thought that, that was the writing on the wall. That was a little bit of a middle finger to the to the executives that are in the building for the Philadelphia Eagles. But he gets the opportunity to coach the Jaguars, and he is doing a really, really good job, man. From worst to first, it is a true Cinderella story. But, you got some supporting cast members, right? You got Travis Etienne, his college teammate. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne went to Clemson together. And so these guys kind of know each other like the back of their hand. Travis Etienne, after dealing with some injuries, 220 carries, 1,125 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's living up to his ability. And then you also have Christian Kirk, who a lot of people just kind of looked at and was like, man, this man getting this type of money, this type of contract, well, he's living up to it. 84 catches, 1,108 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And then you also add Evan Ingram, who the New York Giants kind of wrote off, and now he's down there making plays. And not to mention, all of these defensive players and all these talented guys that the Jacksonville Jaguars have on this team. All right. I mean, we know that, they got Trayvon Walker, the guy who was the first pick overall. I mean, they got Josh Allen out there. Man, they got so many different guys that can play this game. And I just think that, eventually, if you got the right coach and you're picking in the top 5 every single year, you're going to find yourself actually getting better, right? Because all of this talent that you have, these guys are supposed to be like generational type, talent that you have, because they're, you're picking in the top 5. I mean, sometimes you might whiff on a top 5 pick, and then sometimes, you might knock it out the park. But over the last couple of years, they have been knocking it out of the park. And you combine that with Doug Peterson's coaching ability, his ability to get the best out of the quarterback position. That's the reason why the Jacksonville Jaguars are in this position. Now, both of these teams have flaws. Both of them have flaws, all right? When it comes to the running game, right, Travis Etienne, I feel like can really, impose his will on the Chargers. When it comes to the passing game, I feel like Justin Herbert can really impose his will on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I know that the Jacksonville Jaguars have some young, talented cornerbacks, but even though they have been playing really well over the last 3 to 4 games, I still feel like they're still susceptible of being beat. This is a game where I feel like Gerald Everett should be able to really do some things. There is an opening in the middle of the field. Now, I know Everett is not, his go-to guy, especially in certain like red zone situations, maybe when you're trying to extend the chains. But if you use Everett in a way that, that you'll see like most of these tight ends, like a Kelsey, like a George Kittle, being able to, utilize the middle of the field, I think that, you can find success if you're Justin Herbert. I mean, losing Mike Williams is huge, but it's not the end of the world. You still got some young guys that are stepping up, and they're also making plays. And you got to give credit, to Trevor Lawrence, who's also distributing the ball throughout, right? The tight end, the wide receivers. I mean, all of them are getting opportunities. It's not just Christian Kirk out here making plays. So and when you got a complete wide receiver corps and each one of them are capable of making plays, it kind of makes things hard for your defense because you don't know who to zero in on. Both of these teams are going to have their struggles because both of these teams have shortcomings. So I think that this game is going to be close, and it would not surprise me at all, everyone. It would not surprise me, sports fans, if this isn't the game of the weekend, because these two young guys have something to prove. Both of these young guys are supposed to be the future of their franchises. Both of these guys are supposed to lead their franchises for the next 10 to 12 years. And both of these guys have what it takes to be potential MVP candidates down the line. But if I was a betting man, I would have to go. I got to go with the experience. I got to go with Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Has nothing to do with this being a home game. Has nothing to do with the talent of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just think when it all comes down to it, it comes down to experience. It comes down to making adjustments on the fly and who can make the play down the stretch. And I have seen Doug Peterson do this in the past, and I think that he has what it takes to do it again. So there's going to be a close game. Might even come down to a field goal, but I just think that when it comes to it, Doug Peterson is going to have his team prepared to win this football game. So I got the Jacksonville Jaguars winning this football game and moving on to the divisional round. But let's go ahead and read some of your comments here. I'd love to hear from you. Let me see. Beacon says these young quarterbacks and rookies are rocking it out this season. Yeah, I mean, you especially in the AFC. I think the NFC they got some work to do. They got some work to do when it comes to the quarterback position. But when you look at the AFC, and you look at guys like Justin Herbert, when you look at guys like Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, the list goes on and on. Josh Allen, there are so many talented guys. Joe Burrow. I mean, it is just ridiculous the way the AFC is just so top heavy and so much better, in my opinion, than the NFC quarterbacks that you have out there. To me, it's the battle of the dinosaurs, if you want to be honest. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, like who else after that? Like you can Kirk Cousins. I mean, Dak Prescott. Like, are you going to put any of those guys in there? So you look at the AFC, they're just so much better at the quarterback position than the NFC. The NFC has some work to do. And honestly, if you're an NFC team, right, and you hit in the draft and you get yourself a quarterback that's capable and be a future of a franchise, you can lead the NFC, for the foreseeable future. You can get back to winning. Like if your team is not in the playoff, if you get yourself a quarterback and you've seen some things on this season that you felt like maybe you needed some work offensively, if you get yourself the right quarterback, then guess what? You're going to find yourself in a postseason. And who knows? I mean, you can't win it unless you're in it. What is your prediction of the Cowboys and Buccaneers game? I will tell you that on the next show, okay? We're going to break this down on Wildcard Saturday, and then we're going to do Wildcard Sunday on tomorrow. I have a special guest, my guy DJ from the NFC South versus NFL. He'll be here, and we're going to be talking about how that game is going to go. So be sure to check that out. I don't want to give away that prediction until tomorrow. So we're going to be talking about that on tomorrow. Says a funny thing, I'm eating gumbo right now. You're eating gumbo and you're absorbing gumbo. All right, this sounds good to me. Let's see. I predict Bucks beat the Cowboys, as much as I hate to say it. Well, like I said, we're going to talk about that on tomorrow, and we'll break that game down. Let's go ahead and talk about some other news that's making its rounds. Of course, I got to talk about head coach of the Rams, Sean McVay. He decided that he wants to come back for a 7th season. Now, first off, congratulations to him. I think that he's an extraordinary coach. I mean, he's only like 36 years old. This guy's the same age as me, and he's around here with 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl championship. The guy is a prodigy. He's talented, and I just think that as a competitor, you don't want to leave your house dirty. And what I mean by that is you look at the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, they won the Super Bowl last year, and now this year, like they won 4 games. Like that's embarrassing, right? And I just think that it left a bad taste in their mouth. And I know the Rams aren't like some of these other teams where they try to build through the draft. They had and have a win now mentality. Like they are not afraid of going out here and get this guy and get that guy if they feel like he is going to be the guy to help them win, a championship. But I just think that it's time for the Rams to actually go back to being a little bit conventional. Now, I know that it's always going to be appealing because first and foremost, you're in Los Angeles, right? Who doesn't want to live in Los Angeles? I mean, everybody, for the most part, would like to visit or live in Los Angeles before it's all said and done. So that's always going to be a really good tool to use. But I just think that it's time for them to try to do things conventional. Maybe, I don't know, keep your first round pick instead of trying to give it to somebody and try to acquire a seasoned veteran who's going to always be on your books. Look, the Rams have a really good team. I just think that they dealt with injuries. You also had to think about Andrew Whitworth. I mean, him retiring, I think that was big. We know how talented he is as a left tackle. Cam Akers, he wasn't really into it most of the season. I just think that there was some clash in between Cam Akers and the Rams organization. And just at the wide receiver position, you lose Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp last season was the Triple Crown winner, right? And he was about this close from breaking a record for receiving for catches in a season. But this guy is incredible. And when you lose him, that's huge, right? I mean, Allen Robinson, to me, he just does not fit. I mean, he's made some plays down the stretch, but I just don't think that he's a good fit for the Rams. I don't think that that's a good look. And he also have Jalen Ramsey writing letters as if he's not going to be with the Rams next season. So that's something that you're going to have to look at. Will Jalen Ramsey return to the Rams? How is this going to look? Aaron Donald, a couple of years ago, he was talking about retiring. Will he consider retiring, or will he consider continuing to play? So I have to give Sean McVay a lot of credit because he's willing to embrace these questions and try to figure them out. And he's not, just going to television, even though, according to a lot of sources, a lot of networks wanted his services. So he wants to come back and he wants to try to, do what he can to try to turn things around in Los Angeles. And I think he's capable of doing it. I mean, everybody knows how talented this guy is as a head coach. And moving forward, interesting to see what the Rams are going to do. I know they're going to bring back Matthew Stafford, right? They're going to continue to go with Matthew, but there's some things that they need to work on defensively. I mean, they gave up a lot, and also offensively, when it comes to the offensive line, you gotta find ways to try to get better this offseason. But I think that Sean McVay and the Rams organization are up to the task. But we'll see, man. But Sean McVay, I mean, I know that a lot of networks are very interested in him, but I got to give him props for coming back because, a lot of guys would probably just took that money and wouldn't have to deal with the headaches of trying to fix an organization that hasn't won a lot of games. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about Sean Payton. Sean Payton, former New Orleans Saints coach, has been getting wined and dined by teams. We all heard that you have the Houston Texans that are interested. They also reached out to the Saints organization. They were granted permission. We also know the Denver Broncos were granted permission, and the Arizona Cardinals were granted permission. They all were granted permission to talk to former head coach of the Saints, Sean Payton. But here's the thing, GM of the New Orleans Saints, Mickey Loomis, comes out and just says that he wants Sean Payton, quote, to be happy, but he also wants to do what's best for the team. And when you look at these teams, like, of course, you got the Houston Texans. They got the second pick overall, and they also have a 12th pick. That's very intriguing, especially for the New Orleans Saints, team that doesn't have a first-round pick. You also have the Denver Broncos, who have a first-round pick by way of the San Francisco 49ers for the whole Nick Chubb trade, but Bradley Chubb trade, rather. But here's the thing, I just feel, to me, based on the destinations, based on the interview requests, if I'm choosing out of these three teams, I'm rolling with the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Arizona Cardinals are the most ready team, and I just think that it just needs a coach that can help these guys get over the hump. Cliff Kingsbury, to me, is more of a coordinator, more so than a head coach. And I just think that his personality and the way that he is just not the right fit for a professional team. I think that him as a coordinator, I think that's his calling card. But you bring somebody in like Sean Payton, who has this type of experience and can get the best out of these players, I think that it would be very, very great. And I also just feel like you probably would fix your Kyler Murray problem. What's going on with Kyler Murray? What's happening with Kyler Murray? Is he interested in playing a game? Is he interested in playing an actual football game and not the video game? Like, where is his focus, right? A lot of talk about the contract that he signed and all the things that were put into it. Is he really studying? Look, I don't think that I believe that you don't get this good and you don't get as good as Kyler Murray is if you just playing video games all day. I just think that the guy is a good quarterback. I just think that you need somebody that's going to be able to get it out of him. And Sean Payton is not one of those guys that is just going to sit around. If he feels like a guy is lazy, if he feels like a guy is not giving him his all, I think that he's going to go in a different direction. So when you look at it, I think that this is best for Kyler Murray because Sean Payton's personality will push him or it's going to break him. It's going to make him or it's going to break him. It's just that simple. So I think that the Arizona Cardinals is probably the best fit for him. Now, you can talk about the Houston Texans, but firing 2 head coaches in back-to-back years is not a good look. It shows that you're not comfortable. It shows that you're not willing to wait. And I just think that may be a turnoff for Sean Payton, because Sean Payton is more of a slow burn coach. I think he wants to, have success, but I also feel like he wants you to understand that he's going to have to build a team. I feel like the firing of Lovie Smith with the team that he have, I just think that was just a bad look, and I think it's going to cost them. You got some guys that are going to come in for the interview, but in the back of their mind, they're going to wonder, am I going to be the next Lovie Smith? Are they not going to be patient with me if things don't go the way that they feel like needs to go? So that's where we are. I mean, the Houston Texans, if you're the New Orleans Saints, that would be interesting, right? Because they have a second pick in the draft, and they also have a 12th pick. And if you look at the Saints draft order, you will see that they're supposed to pick 10th, but they gave that pick to Philadelphia due to a trade, right? To be able to acquire Chris Olave and also Trevor Penning, right? So that you look at these teams, like if you were picking 12, I mean, that's still pretty good, right? I mean, you were going to pick 10. So it's like as if you didn't lose anything at all. And most of these, if you think about it, most of this draft position is due to tiebreakers. So you could have been picking 12, you could have been picking 11, you could have been picking 10. So if I'm looking at that, I would be interested in that. But I just think that due to the dysfunction and them being unstable, I'm talking to Houston Texans, I think that may be a huge turnoff. And I also don't think that, he's just content. I'm just wondering, Brandon Staley, I mentioned him, right? They got a game today. What will happen if they just get bounced out of the playoffs? What's going to happen to him? Are the Chargers going to fire him, right? I mean, there's so many questions. I think the craziest thing that I'm hearing is the whole Mike McCarthy situation. Like, people are talking about the Cowboys possibly firing Mike McCarthy after a 13-win season. And, people are talking about Mike McCarthy are good. They need to replace him with Sean Payton. Well, I don't understand it. I mean, I don't get it, because what people aren't understanding, and I thought this was very interesting, and as I find it, I try to look for it here. If you look at Mike McCarthy's record and you look at Sean Payton's record, they're almost identical, right? Mike McCarthy has won more playoff games than Sean Payton. Sean Payton has a 62% winning percentage, and Mike McCarthy has a 61% winning percentage. Mike McCarthy has one Super Bowl. Sean Payton has one Super Bowl. So I don't understand, like, when people say, well, they need to replace it with Sean Payton, it's like you almost replaced them with the same guy. I just think that people like Sean Payton's personality, and maybe they feel that gives them ground to feel like that will be able to get them over the hump. But I'm just saying, Mike McCarthy is a good coach. And I just think that, you look at Dak Prescott, he has been struggling, and I just think that you cannot just blame him for that. Like, this team is winning more games than they've won in a long time. And it has a lot to do with Mike McCarthy being the head coach of this team, him being able to get the right staff in place in order for them to be in this position. So I don't understand it. Like, got a lot of respect for Sean Payton, of course, him being the former coach of my favorite team, the Saints. But I mean, you got to be real about this. Both of them are virtually the same. People talking about, teams getting bounced out the playoffs. I mean, I can make arguments about Sean Payton and some of his play calling, and also the Saints, who are being picked to win Super Bowls and them not being able to get the job done. So I just think that it's funny that people are actually saying that Mike McCarthy needs to be fired. Like, it's just, to me, if you're talking about firing a guy like Mike McCarthy, you're basically just saying that I just want something more sexier than that, right? I just want somebody with a bigger name than that, because the guy is showing you that he has what it takes to win games, right? It depends on, like, how satisfied you want to be. And I always just find it funny, that people are talking about Dallas Cowboys having a standard. They haven't been to the NFC Championship game since 1995. Haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1995. What kind of standard do you actually have? So it just seems like to me it should be if you have a coach that's winning games and several games above 500, you just need to be quiet. But we know that the power of mass media, the power of mainstream media, it puts these nuggets in their ear and it gives these fans sometimes a false sense of reality. And I just think that's just the case. Like, how are you complaining about a coach that has won 13 games? I mean, I'm just at a loss for words. I just don't understand. Like, how can you get upset with a guy like Mike McCartney and want him out of town for a guy like Sean Payton? But there's going to be several other teams I feel like there's going to throw their hat in the race. I just think that we're probably going to be hearing that down the stretch, but they're going to have to figure it out pretty soon because, you know, the Senior Bowl is just around the corner. You got a lot of, teams that are trying to get their coaching staff together. Guys have been fired. They're trying to find other guys to come in. So it's going to be a race, a race against the clock for Sean Payton to find a home and be able to put his staff together, even though I think he probably have a plan in place already. But I don't think that it's just going to be the Broncos, the Cardinals, and the Texans that are going to be interested. I think you're going to hear more teams' names come up in the next couple of days. But let me go ahead and read a few comments, then we're going to go ahead and get up out of here. It says, Cowboy fans have been wanting Sean Payton for years, though. They can want him, but at the same time, I'm just wondering to myself, like, besides like his personality and maybe wearing some Jordans on the sidelines, what will he give you that Mike McCartney isn't giving you? Like, I just look at these guys' record. To me, they're virtually the same coach. Like, I just think that one of them just has a little bit more of a personality than the other, and that's what gives him, the notch over the other. But if you look at their record, it's virtually the same. So how can anybody just say that Sean Payton is that much better than Mike McCartney? I just don't understand it. And then I can make an argument that Mike McCartney is a little bit better, if you think about it, because here's the thing, right? He inherited a quarterback that was struggling, right? And Dak Prescott, and he's able to get that, and get those 13 games out of him. And also, if you can make an argument, okay, both of these guys, the last place that they coached, they were coaching legendary quarterbacks. Whether it was Brett Favre, whether it was Aaron Rodgers, whether it was Drew Brees with Sean Payton. But when Sean Payton had opportunity to live life, post Drew Brees, it didn't resemble a bunch of success. I mean, 9-8, but what you look at with Mike McCartney, you got Dak Prescott, who has been struggling, throughout his career, and he got 13 games out of him. So I'm just wondering, like, you can make an argument to say that Mike McCartney has done a really good job, and the fact that people are talking about getting him up out of here is pretty funny to me. I find that very, very funny that you would want to get a guy like this tossed up out the door after, he gave you 13 games. I wish. Let's see. Jerry Jones thinks he's the head coach and loves attention too much. Them boys, Cowboys, biggest problem. Well, the way that he is keeps these guys in the limelight, David. It keeps them in the limelight because him going out here being like a Don King, Al Heyman type promoter, a Vince McMahon, if you will, no matter how bad the team is doing, like, they're always going to be the center of attention. And throughout the years, because of that big time personality he has, the Cowboys honestly have been overachievers, if you want to be honest. Like, these guys, if you're really being honest about this, they don't deserve all these primetime games throughout the years. They didn't deserve to be America's Game of the Week throughout the years. I mean, there's been times where the Cowboys have, lost and won like 5 games or something like that, and on the record, and you're on pace to be like 5-12, and they still America's Game of the Week. And I think you have to give props to Jerry Jones. I mean, he is the P.T. Barnum of the National Football League. He knows how to promote. He knows how to promote his football team. But, this year they deserve the attention they get because they're one of the best teams in the NFL. I mean, you got to give them credit for that. It says, I think Mike McCartney is a pretty good coach. I think so too. Say, y'all hit the like button. I agree. If you like the Gumbo Pie Sports Podcast, go ahead and hit that like button. I would really appreciate that. And thank you all for checking out the first episode of the Gumbo Pie Sports Podcast. We'll be back on tomorrow breaking down Wildcard Weekend Sunday. Okay, Wildcard Sunday, we'll be breaking that down. I have a special guest, DJ from the NFC South versus NFL. He's going to stop by to talk to us a little bit about the game, that a team that we were mentioning. His team is going to be taking on the Cowboys. I'm talking to Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday. So he's going to be talking with me about that game. And of course, we're going to be talking about the other games that are going to be taking place on Sunday. So if you like the show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I appreciate everybody stopping by. Much love to everybody that's in the chat. Really do appreciate that. Make sure that you all subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you hit that like button. Previous episodes that are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. And also you can follow me on Twitter at TJAY Jones 8. Jerry Jones says, thanks. You're the PT Barnum of Saints podcast. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Jerry Jones. Thank you so much for the $2. And hopefully not only am I the PT Barnum of that, but be the PT Barnum of all the podcasts that I do. I really do appreciate that. And I also appreciate you. And till next time, you all take care and enjoy Wildcard Saturday.